gonna get sticky!
Marvel Rivals has done nothing but shock the video game industry over these past few months, and I would argue that it has shocked the entire video game industry back to life in some instances. From the record number of active players to the fact that it quite literally killed Overwatch 2. And fun fact, Rivals is also responsible for one of my most viewed and most popular TikTok videos that I have ever created. Suffice it to say, Marvel Rivals is on top of the world right now, and it's also in the hearts and minds of a large populace. But today, just like most days between now and November of 2024, my primary interest in the game has been only one thing: the character models. Big exclamation point. Since the game officially released, I have been working as hard as my FBI agent on a Wednesday afternoon to collect all the models and files that I can on this game. I've been having a lot of fun with Marvel Rivals over these past few months, and by fun, I mean making up the funniest scenarios to put all the characters in and really showcase what goes on before and after a Marvel Rivals match ends. And now, after rewatching some of the Avengers movies, particularly Age of Ultron, I got an idea for the next Rivals render that I wanted to work on. The giant, elaborate statue that was showcased at the end of Avengers Age of Ultron was something that I've always loved about the movie. It was so intricately detailed and just so cool to look at, and I always wanted to have my own version of it. Fast forward a few days after coming up with the idea, and here we are. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode in the Blender Discourse course. A little series where we spend way too much time debating on whether or not Squirrel is actually the most OP character in the game, or whether or not Jeff the Land Shark is actually the main menace in Marvel Rivals. I know we got two Dr. Dooms, but maybe that shark is the actual mastermind, but no one wants to believe me. If you liked the video, or if you found it entertaining, or if you learned a few new things about how to work Blender and other 3D softwares in your life, feel free to hit that like button and hit that subscribe button since you're right next to it, and feel free to leave a comment. Have you played Marvel Rivals yet? Because it is one of the biggest games in the world. Or do you just, like me, care only about the characters and how they look? Because I absolutely love the art style and the texturing for all of the models. Eventually, I knew that I was going to have to make something as elaborate as a statue with all these characters. Their designs, voices, and animations throughout the entire game kind of warrant that. But what I did not expect was for Avengers 2 to come into the play anywhere in the mix, but here we are. I had well over 20 characters to play with, and if you consider the character models that I actually had who had extra skins from within the game, I had a total of about 25 characters that I could include here. My initial thoughts behind replicating the Age of Ultron statue were to have two opposing teams on each side of the platform, add in all of the various debris and flying rocks, and then throw either Jeff, Squirrel Girl, Iron Fist, or even Spider-Man in the middle of all the action and have them try to break up all of the fighting between the teams. That was the first idea. The second idea hit me like a truck after I reviewed the press footage for the statue for the third time. That's when I realized I should put Jeff right there at the top where Ultron is on the statue. That makes perfect sense, especially since he's the most diabolical character in the entire game. You can at me later. My next thought was to add Squirrel Girl in the place where Vision would be on the statue. That way her and Jeff could be fighting to end the entire battle. This ended up being a lot closer to how I originally had the four characters in the middle of the entire battle trying to break up the teams. But then I thought about where Galactic would be. I decided to have her in the background and have her be the mastermind for this entire battle. Of all the 20 plus characters I had for this project, the most difficult one for some odd reason was Namor. Maybe it's because of the different scripts that came with his model or the fact that he was just too much of a beefcake. I'm probably gonna go with the last one. Because of all the extra stuff that I had to enable in order to get him in, I just decided, yeah, he's out. Funny enough, I wasn't even gonna have Namor fighting in this entire scene. I was actually gonna have him just laying on a rock gazing at both Sue and Malice since I had both of their models, but none of that worked. And everything that I just talked about for the last, 30 seconds literally means nothing.
Speaking of Sue Storm, one of my favorite parts of this entire project was actually figuring out how to replicate and display her powers. Since she has the ability of turning invisible as well as projecting force fields and other things of that nature, I decided, let's figure out how to actually do that. So I spent a lot more time than I should have trying to figure out what shape I should work on with her powers. I came across just a regular sphere like most people do in Blender, and then I spent a lot more time figuring out what shaders I wanted to actually add in order to make the bubbles look like they were actually made out of translucent material / energy. Luckily I was able to double this for Malice's model as well, so I ended up doing more or less double the work within a couple of minutes. So after moving her to her part of the map, I decided to work on Mr. Fantastic's powers, and that is where most of the this is a 3D software and these are 3D models issue came in. I ended up skipping over a lot of stuff too here, but when it comes down to it, I decided to just go ahead and get ready for the rest of the animation tracks. So I set up camera tracks so I can drag my cameras along and actually move and actually do cool animation stuff, because that's the main thing that I wanted to do for the entirety of this project. But I had to do all the hard work of making sure stuff came together and looked right. So now, after taking about 20 minutes to lay out all the camera tracks, I decided to work on the rest of the map. I added a little bit more than I should have, but you know, I had all these free rock models and stone textures, and well, I used the same invisibility textures on some of these rocks to make what basically are icebergs in space, which makes sense. There are icebergs and asteroids in space, and I'm just like, let's just channel our inner Doctor Doom and make a battle world. Why not? Because Secret Wars is definitely around the corner somewhere.
3 weeks later.
Now that roughly a month or so has passed and all of the animations that I wanted to actually showcase are here, here is the showcase for the Marvel Rivals statue that I decided to build, and the bad video test that I wanted to do, but I decided to include it because why not? But it's not the best showcase, but it is something I'll probably post on TikTok in the future, because why not? All of the camera movements and all of these little animations that I did roughly took about 20 to 30, maybe even 40 hours to render for all of these. Basically, doing the math, it was about 10 minutes per frame, and most of these were about 300 frames. One of them was 100. Doing the math, that's about 40 hours or so. Overall, it was worth it. I like how a lot of these were a little bit faster than what I expected them to be, but at the same time, I am satisfied with this. I think this last animation with Galacta looking over everything and puppeteering everything like she usually is in the game is pretty fun. Well, I shouldn't say puppeteering, that's not the right word to say, but that's how I said it. I think this all turned out as good as it could for me having to wake up sometimes at 5 o'clock in the morning just to make sure that Blender didn't crash on me in the middle of one of these animations. But anyway.
Now that you see how the statue turned out, feel free to jump in the comments and tell me who your favorite Rivals character is, once again. Also, do you think Jeff is the evil mastermind of the entire Marvel Rivals universe like I do? Let me know. It's always the cute ones that end up being the most diabolical. And with all that being said, thank you for watching. Feel free to check out the rest of the Blender Discourse course playlist that should be on screen now, and I will check you all later.